Yeah, so I guess we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm here with Kory from Teslica E-bikes in Ottawa, and he's agreed to chat with us a little bit about e-bikes and how they can work well in this new normal, and also I think some of the safety aspects of it, because that's, like I said, that's sort of our mandate and kind of our lens is the road safety aspect of these things. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is a great opportunity. Really appreciate everything you guys do.
Absolutely, yeah. We, protecting vulnerable road users is #1 in our books. So I guess maybe we'll start off with the lay of the land, what we're talking about when we talk about an e-bike. So, there's two different types, and maybe I'll let you discuss sort of what we mean by a pedelec versus sort of a battery-powered scooter.
For sure. So there is a lot of misunderstanding about exactly what an e-bike is, and there are the two types, and we mainly focus on an e-bike that within Canada, the limitations are it must not exceed 32 kilometers an hour.
Right.
The motor must be 500 watts or smaller.
Right.
You must have functioning pedals on the bike.
Right.
And the bike must not weigh more than 120 kilograms.
Which is huge.
As soon as you get beyond any one of those levels, you come into like an e-scooter or a different category of
like
e-bike.
A moped kind of thing, yeah.
Exactly, where you are going to require, a driver's license and insurance.
Right.
So these ones you don't require that, and that's really the differentiator between the two categories. So these are more like a bicycle with an extra little boost should you choose to use it.
Right. Are most of the motors that you guys carry sort of in the 350 range, or?
We 350 to 500. Most are 350.
Right.
We have one model at 500, and then we do have one that is in the other category, and that's actually the one that we have for there is for private property use only. It's actually not even a street bike. It's for private property use, and that one's 2,000 watts. It's for someone to enjoy some fun on the farm.
Yes, which it makes a ton of sense. They have, like I said, all that torque. I know when I've seen some interesting sort of motorbike type ones that are fast as heck. I mean,
they're crazy.
Obviously Teslas are beating fancy cars off the line. So,
but I mean, honestly, the 250 to 500 watt. For the average person that just wants to get on the trails and go a little further, go a little faster, or not have to worry so much about the hills or a headwind, they're absolutely perfect. And 500 watts is way more power than you're really ever going to need.
Absolutely.
For any regular biking circumstances.
I'm a cyclist and I have a power meter on my bike. I don't ever hit 500 watts, and I'm pretty fit. I can go 350 sometimes, and that's like really breathing hard. So to have that with you all the time is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess sort of from sort of our current situation, I think, there's a lot of concern now around we're going to have to go back to work eventually. And I know there's a lot of people that have been, taking transit at this point, and are having concerns about that. So I would suggest that an e-bike can really sort of shorten those distances from work to home, given Ottawa's sprawl, without arriving to work all sweaty too. That's the other thing I think that really a lot of people are concerned about with trying to ride a bike to commute. So maybe sort of outline maybe the typical range. I realize that varies depending on the weight of the person and headwinds and all that kind of stuff, but sort of a typical range of the battery charge sort of kind of thing.
Yeah, so you've touched on a few things there, and with everything that is going on now, a lot of people are a little bit concerned about getting on the public transportation, like you say, and I do have a number of customers already this year that have gone down the e-bike avenue.
Right.
When it comes to that, I mean, what some people choose to do is they level 5 it, which is the maximum level the whole way to work.
Right.
They do their work day, depending on the distance they needed to go. They may even recharge the battery at work.
Right, you can do that, right? Just pop it off and bring it into work.
Right in.
Yep.
And then on the way home, they can lower down that level of assist and then, get a little bit sweaty on the way home. So they're fresh for their whole work day.
Yeah.
And you're avoiding being on the public transportation at the the time. If you have these concerns, which many people do. With regards to the battery range, our bikes generally have 40 to 80 kilometer range, and again, it's a span within the normal averages. And like you mentioned, headwinds, hills, body weight, stop and go, power assist level. There's lots of different variables there. I will mention with our bikes, from being tried, tested, and true, those are actually very accurate numbers. I have a number of people who only use level assist level assist 5 because I do commute to work.
Right.
And they say between 40 and 52 kilometers is what they're achieving on level 5, which is phenomenal.
That's impressive. Yeah. I mean, that'll get you from Canada to the middle of like Orleans, or not middle of Orleans.
Exactly.
Right downtown.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I myself was able to achieve 108 kilometers on level 1.
Wow.
So yeah. So those are obviously the extremes, but they're there.
Well, I think 40 kilometers one direction is certainly more than enough. Most folks' typical commute is somewhere in the sort of 12 to 15 range, which is
exactly.
Yeah, no, I think it can be a real resurgence for this. And I love the model you have about the mobile showroom basically coming to the clients. That makes a lot of sense and convenient.
A little bit different.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think that model has been proven to work quite well. So I mean, maybe I guess the other thing we could touch on, as we touched on earlier, is having all that torque available at 0 RPM and 32 kilometers an hour doesn't sound like much, but if we're coming back to bikes, say we're 60, 65, and we're hearing about these things that Fred and Mary have and are having a good time on, I'm not sort of introducing the concept of licensing at all, but maybe, some safety concerns. Maybe we could talk about that, just being aware. I mean, all the normal stuff that we would do on a bike, I assume, plus.
You're absolutely right. So, I mean, know your hand signals, wear your helmet, don't have loose clothing, all those everyday normal things you do on a regular bike. Some of the differences with the e-bikes is you're right. You have this extra little bit of power. So you really got to, when you haven't tried one for the first time, just start, right? So they just, as soon as they get on there, they feel like, ooh, that just the gentle little wind at your back kind of thing to like ease yourself into it. But it's noticeable. And the thing is if you go and, if you had it on level 5 and you park your bike for a moment and you jump back on it, you need to remember that you're on level 5, and especially if you're not quite used to it yet, because as soon as you start pedaling, you're just going to zoom off.
Surge ahead,
and also, some bikes have wrist throttles and thumb throttles.
Right. And
those will still, if you accidentally hit them, you'll get a little boost of power. Right. So you just have to, it's not exactly like a bicycle. There's a few differences there. Yeah. You just have to get used to anything that's a change. You have to get used to how it operates, get comfortable with it, and be cautious with it. But all of those things are designed to, when you use them properly, to be very safe and very helpful with what you're looking to do. Yeah. Are you able to see me there? Okay. I just have an internet connection.
Yeah, you were blocking out a little bit, but the sound came through okay. So we'll figure that out. Yeah. I guess the other thing too is, there could be a case made that they could even be somewhat safer than bikes in a sense that they can get up to speed of car traffic. They can hold the lane a little bit easier. It's easier for them to sort of maintain, shall we say, sort of a dense urban traffic speed than they might have been able to otherwise. So, you could also sort of look at it in that respect as well. Easier to keep up with traffic, and you accelerate quickly at intersections, because intersections are always where accidents or collisions happen, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's so many benefits to them. You touched on a few there. One that I always say, when you're a cyclist and you come up to a stop sign, whether it's on a street or red light or even on a trail, you are supposed to come to a 100% stop. And, I don't have to go and say it, but when you're, it's easy to just kind of coast through it, right? Sure. On an e-bike, you have that little thumb throttle. You have that extra bit of help. There's no reason why you shouldn't play it safe, come to that complete stop, take your look around, and when it's safe, you move along. You have no excuse there. So, because that's often what another little added benefit right there. Pardon me?
That's often what cyclists say about, not coming to a complete stop. Certainly, we all know about the Idaho stop, and we can see around better. But yeah, certainly the excuse is that you're constantly stopping and going, and it can be onerous. Certainly, if you're in a situation, say along a Byron Street next to Wellington, which is a constant series of 4-way stops. But yeah, that excuse is taken away with an e-bike, right? So that makes a ton of sense.
There's a number of other things there too when it comes to safety on an e-bike. Many of them do have the disc brakes, which I do recommend. They don't all, but you are moving around some extra weight. The motor has some weight to it. The battery has some weight to it, and of course, the frame is built a little bit more robust to handle this extra weight. So, on top of the extra weight, often you're moving a little bit faster. So when you have all these things in play, you want to be able to stop safety, even if the road conditions are, a little bit wet or you're on gravel and that sort of thing. So brakes are certainly something to keep in mind when you're making a purchase on an e-bike.
Yeah.
And you know, there's lots of different stats out there about, you know, safety and that sort of thing. And one of the interesting ones that I read that often gets overlooked is, you know, you start helping older folks get out in the bike. Maybe their knees aren't quite as good as they used to be, or they have a couple extra pounds. But sorry, I forget where I was going with that. But geez, I lost my train of thought. Where the accidents come from. So some of the mishaps actually come from getting on and off the bike. It's one of the most common bike accidents is getting on and off your bike. So one thing I wanted to point out was just make sure you have the proper bike for your mobility or flexibility level. I mean, there's different types of rings available you can step through, and just make sure you're not going to have any of those, having an issue getting on and off your bike.
Exactly. Yeah, statistically, most accidents or issues or crashes on bikes are all by themselves. I mean, people are always concerned, cyclists are always concerned about getting hit by cars, and of course that's a really big deal, and we don't want that to happen. But statistically, it doesn't happen that often. It's a very rare occurrence. Most of the visits to hospitals with cyclists are them falling all by themselves. So it's just, it's an awareness level, right? And we work with kids to train them from bike safety right up through the schools. So, and we do also motorcycle training as well. So that's also what I'm mulling is perhaps a very simple 2-day certification course for e-bike to give folks that sort of peace of mind might be an interesting product offering for us in the future, just to kind of just to go over the basics again. Is I think a lot of these e-bikes are being bought by folks who haven't been on a bike in a long time and are coming back to it. I'm assuming that's fairly accurate. So so that's kind of how I'd like to think about that. Cool.
I think it's great.
And I don't know if I think we mentioned your company's name again, but we'll do it again, and I'll have some images coming up a little bit later too. But it's Teslica, right? Teslica, and Teslica.com.
You got it.
I think that pretty much sort of addresses kind of everything I wanted to cover. I just really wanted to sort of do an intro to e-bikes for our viewers and introduce you and talk a little bit about safety. So I think I'll thank you at this point.
Thank you.
No, it's a treat.